Good evening, everyone. I'm Amy Johnson-Crow, and thank you so much for joining me for a little bit of recap that we're going to do about RootsTech 2023. I am so thankful that you are joining me, whether you are watching this live or watching the replay. And we had kind of two different audiences also at RootsTech. We had, several thousand people there in person and several more thousand who were participating virtually, whether they were watching the live streams, watching the pre-recorded content, or participating in the Relatives at RootsTech that Family Search had sponsored. So I'm just going to take a real quick look, see where everybody is watching from. We have people from Kansas and Texas and Colorado. We've got Jennifer in Ohio. Hey there, neighbor. We have people in Michigan and Missouri and Oklahoma City, and I always feel like this is sort of like Romper Room, calling out where everybody is. Hey there, Jenna, I know you're representing the great state of Missouri. So hopefully my tech is all working. Just want to check one thing before I get too far into this. So yeah, RootsTech, got to make sure that the tech is working for this. Apologies here, but just want to make sure. Okay, we are good. All right, excellent. All right, let's go ahead and dive into this. So what I wanted to do this evening is to do a little bit of a recap of some of the announcements that were made at RootsTech, and also, just some of my own perspectives of RootsTech. It's the first time that it's been held in person since 2020. Yeah, they got RootsTech 2020 in just under the wire. They had that, and just within a week or 10 days, everything shut down. So it was really close last time. So, and of course, we'll be opening it up to questions. If you do have questions, please feel free to leave a comment here in the chat, and I will see what I can do about answering it. But let's go ahead and get started with Family Search. Family Search is the sponsor of the RootsTech conference. So I think it's only fitting that we go ahead and start with them. Now, the theme for this year's RootsTech conference was uniting. Last year was connecting. Well, after we connect, we're going to take it one step further and unite. And the theme really that Steve Rockwood talked about in his opening session on Thursday was this concept of what they're calling all means all. Family Search and others in the genealogy community have talked about for years that genealogy is for everybody. Everybody, all people should be able to do their genealogy. Well, Family Search has been looking at that, and it's like, well, let's be real. Let's get real here for a second. It's a lot easier for some groups to do their genealogy than it is for other groups. And part of that is because of the records that are being made available. So if you're doing a lot of research in the United States, yeah, there's a lot of research that you can do, particularly online in the United States. There are a lot of records that you can access if you have ancestors from the British Isles or, from other places especially in Western Europe. But Family Search, and it looks like they're really trying to back up this concept of all means all, and they are taking their digitization efforts and really truly trying to make it more worldwide. They are putting cameras in, and when I mean cameras, I'm talking about their digitizing equipment. They're putting cameras in something like 150 countries, and they're hitting more countries in Asia. They're hitting more countries in South America. They're hitting more countries in Africa. They are working more on their project to record the oral genealogies that are passed down in Africa. They've had that project going on for a few years now, and they're really kind of doubling down on their efforts to record more of those. And again, it's that concept of let's be real. Let's be sincere when we say that everybody should be able to do their genealogy, and let's try to make that more inclusive. So their concept of all means all. Something else kind of flew under the radar a little bit, and it's not huge, but it's still kind of neat just to see the evolution. And that is something that happened actually officially announced a few days before RootsTech. This is the obligatory selfie in front of the library. But what I want to point out, see if I can get this to go right. Yeah, there we go. You might notice it is now the Family Search Library. It is no longer officially the Family History Library. The great big genealogy library there in Salt Lake City is now officially the Family Search Library. For those of us who have been used to calling it the Family History Library for a lot of years, might take a little bit to get used to calling it the Family Search Library, but there we go. That was a little bit of fun there. So like I said, I did have to have the obligatory selfie in front of the library. I don't think they actually let you in the library if you don't take a selfie. Now, I'm just kidding about that, but it sure feels that way. It was fun to do. All right. So let's move on to the first platinum sponsor of RootsTech, and this was highlighted on Thursday, and that was Ancestry. And Ancestry's big announcement, all of the big companies try to have some sort of big announcement for RootsTech. Ancestry's big announcement was something called Storymaker Studio. It's Ancestry's attempt to try to incorporate story into family trees. It's been rather clunky throughout the years of, okay, I have this story, I have something that isn't easily encapsulated in a record. How do I attach that to my tree? And this is a way that Ancestry is trying to pull things in. Gonna be honest, I think this still has a ways to go. For one thing, it is only available on the Ancestry app. You cannot, at least right now, I don't know if they're going to change it, but at least as of right now, it is only on the Ancestry app. So that would be both on iPhone and on Android. I was actually disappointed to find that it is a feature that is only on the app, because a lot of us do most of our work on desktop, whether that's a laptop computer, but we're doing it on a computer. We're not doing it through the app. So that's kind of cutting off a large portion of Ancestry's user base right there from accessing this feature. But when you do go into the app, Jenna says, if you don't take a selfie, it didn't happen. That's true. And we're genealogists. We need to document these things, right? So one thing about the Storymaker Studio app, let's see if I can, here's a screenshot that Ancestry provided to me. When you go into the app, because I don't know if I'm going to be able to really show this here on my phone. If I go into the app, okay, there's the Ancestry app. You want to make sure that you're down here on the Discover little tab. Okay, you want to make sure that you're on the Discover tab, and then it opens up this little window for Storymaker Studio, and then you can tap the Explore button. Okay, so when you do that, and I just realized none of you saw that. Let me try that again. Oh, technical difficulties. All right, we're going to try this again. So when you're in the app, make sure that you're on the Discover tab on the bottom. And when you are, it opens up the Storymaker Studio little option there. And then you can tap that green Explore button, and it opens it up. And you can add stories. It gives you the option of photos that you've already added. You can go in and tag people. honestly, as I've been playing around with this on the app, every time I go into tag photos, it crashes the app. So don't know quite what's going on there. But it does give you some things to do, and they do give you some story prompts. So I tapped on Add a Story, and it gives you some suggestions. And for people in your tree who are having a birthday or an anniversary coming up, it will actually give you some prompts to create a story about that. Now, when you create a story, it can be public. And when it's like attached to someone in your tree, then it says that it also gets sent to other people who also have that person in their tree. I have not seen anywhere in any of Ancestry's documentation that says how those other people are alerted that there's a new story. And do they get alerted on desktop, or is that something else that's also only in the app? I'm really unclear about that. So I think that StoryMaker Studio does have some promise, but I think it does have, I think it has a ways to go. There's some functionality that just doesn't seem like it's quite intuitive enough yet. So, like I said, I'm sure that they are going to be revamping and enhancing all of this. And hopefully, if anyone from Ancestry is watching this, if you could make this same functionality available via a web browser and not just in the Ancestry app, that'd be great. Thanks. All right. So let's move on a little bit to some more things that were announced at RootsTech. And if you are just joining us, I am doing a recap of RootsTech 2023, some of the major announcements and some of my own takeaways from the conference. And up next, let's talk about the platinum sponsor for day 2 of RootsTech, and that was MyHeritage. Now, they actually had several different announcements. This one that they called DNA Quest, this is actually the 3rd year that they have done this. I think the last time they did it was back in 2019, but it is a project where adoptees can apply to receive a free DNA test from MyHeritage with the goal of reuniting with biological families. And the flip side of that, I believe that also if you are part of a birth family, that you can, I think, now I should have double checked this, but I think that it also works that if you have someone in your family who was given up for adoption, that you can also apply to this. They're making 5,000 of these kits available, and you can apply to be part of this at dnaquest.org. So again, this is something, it's not a brand new project, but it is something that MyHeritage, they've done it a couple years before, and they paused the program for a couple of years, but they have restarted it again. MyHeritage and their DNA Quest. And you can find more about that at dnaquest.org. Something else new that MyHeritage announced, and this is, I could see where this would be helpful for some people as they are trying to sort out matches, or when they have a lot of people in their family tree who names keep getting used over and over. And that is, now people have the ability to color code their family trees. Is this earth-shattering? No, not really. But like I said, I think that this can be a really useful tool in some situations. If you're like my family, where it seems like everybody keeps naming the first son John or something like that, it can be a little bit confusing when you're going through your list of people in your tree. And it's like, no, which one am I looking for? Well, when you color code them, then it makes it more obvious. Okay, this is the John Smith that I descend from, as opposed to his cousin John Smith. So that can be useful. But I think the really cool thing that MyHeritage announced was this new product that they have called the CM Explainer, the Santa Morgan Explainer. And it's to help people understand the possible relationships with someone that they have a DNA match with. We've probably all seen those charts. If you've been doing DNA research, and you're trying to analyze your matches, and it will tell you how long or how much DNA you share. And then there's this whole slew of possibilities of, well, if you share this much DNA, then here are the probabilities and all of the different possibilities of how you might be related to that person. Well, what's cool about the Santa Morgan Explainer, the CM Explainer on MyHeritage, is that not only can you plug in the amount of DNA that you share, you can also add your age and your match's age. And I know a lot of times you're not going to have that match's exact age, but you can usually get a ballpark for it. You can usually at least get them in the right decade. But what's really cool is they incorporate those ages. I've been helping a woman who is in her 80s, and she was adopted. Well, going through her matches, yeah, it's on Ancestry DNA, and it's giving you all of the possibilities. Well, some of those possibilities just really aren't feasible considering her age. So what the MyHeritage CM Explainer does, by allowing you to put in your age and the age of that match, it kind of helps take out some of the less feasible possibilities. So if there is a wide age range between the two of you, okay, you're probably not first cousins. It's probably something else. All right, so I really like that. And what's cool about the CM Explainer from MyHeritage, it's absolutely free. You don't even need a MyHeritage account to use it. You can just go to myheritage.com/CM and you can use this tool. It's completely free. You just plug in the values and it gives you a really nice chart. It explains what these different relationships mean. It's just laid out super, super well. And I think that MyHeritage did a really good job with this. And I like this added facet of, okay, let's compare the ages of these matches so that we start to see what really is the more likely relationship between these two people. So that's really cool. All right. Now, I know we talked a little bit about the Ancestry Storymaker Studio that they have incorporated into the app, but let's talk about the Day 3 Platinum sponsor at RootsTech this year, and it's a brand new company called Storied, and you can find them at storied.com. Now, Storied.com actually has some people who used to work at Ancestry. And I have to say, I was a little dubious when I heard about what their product is, but after playing with it a little bit, watching their demonstrations, and really getting an idea of what their vision is for this, I think this could be really, really, really cool. So what Storied does is you can build a tree or you can upload a tree, because a lot of us already have, trees built. We don't want to redo them, but we can add a tree into Storied. And as the name implies, we can more easily add stories to it. I think this is what Ancestry is trying to do with that Storymaker Studio, but it's so much better implemented over on Storied, because you can have collaboration. You can make a free account on Storied, and add your tree. You can add your stories, but with a paid account, and their accounts start at $4.99 a month. Yeah, $5 a month. And that will let you, when you have even that basic paid plan, you can actually create your own groups. A group can have, I believe, at that $5 a month level, I think that it gives you up to 50 people in a group, which, I mean, that's a good number of people. It's then private, so you're sharing stories just among the people who are in that group. And when they say stories, it's text, it's images. They are working on letting people upload audio and video. They say that those formats are coming very soon, which that'll be kind of neat. But what's neat about this, as opposed to something like a Facebook group, when somebody adds a story into the group, the other members of the group get an email. Hey, there's a new story. I mean, how often have we been parts of private Facebook groups and things get posted and we have no idea because we don't get notified? The Facebook notification system is just so, we'll call it broken. It's just not very good, but Storied really works around that. So it makes it a lot easier for people to get notified. It's super easy to use and it's super affordable. And I love the concept of having the tree with the stories, because now with something like this, you as the family genealogist can be adding those facts and those documents and all of that, all the things that we find in our research. But now the siblings and the aunts and uncles and the cousins who aren't as into the research, but they know the family stories, they can now participate. It's a lot easier for them to participate in something like Storied rather than trying to show them how to attach things to a specific profile on your ancestry tree. This is so much more collaborative. Carol asks a good question. I'm going to pull this question in. She says, is Storied like its own genealogy social media? Yeah, you could think of it that way, because you can make your own private little groups, and or you can also post things publicly. So and you can then also share things to Facebook. If it's something that you have made public, you can share it then further on more social media. You could email it to somebody. But yeah, I'm really, really, really intrigued by this, to see really the possibilities. And one thing that Storied is doing is they're really promoting having groups that aren't strictly family. So you could create a group, say, for an upcoming high school reunion. You could create a group for people who served in the same unit in the military. You could have something for people who used to live in the same neighborhood. So really expanding what that concept of a group, what a family, what an association is. So I think that there is a lot of potential there with Storied. Like I said, I'm looking forward to digging into it more. You can, like I said, they do have a free account, and it gives you a lot of functionalities just with the free account. Their paid accounts start at $4.99 a month. They had another plan, and I apologize for not having the current price on that, but they do have one level up that actually gives you access to historical records. I'm presuming it's probably a lot of census records, but also access to newspaper archives, which, that's a pretty cool feature. And I remember it being very affordable, especially compared to a lot of other subscriptions that we pay for. Yeah, and Carol says, I like the idea of going beyond the tree in collaboration. Yeah, totally. Yeah, I really, really like that as well. Jean asks, how do you access the free DNA CM tool on MyHeritage? You just go to myheritage.com/CM. That's how you can get directly to it. All right. So we also had a few other product announcements. Roots Magic, right before RootsTech, they dropped their latest version of their software. We are now up to Roots Magic version 9. Honestly, I had skipped 8 just because when Roots Magic 8 was launched, I had a lot of stuff going on and I just never got around to it, to be totally honest. So I was really happy. I picked up a copy of Roots Magic 9. I've got it installed on my Mac. I love the fact that Roots Magic is now available natively on my Mac. I don't have to fire up a Windows emulator and run Roots Magic on, as one of my friends used to say, on the dark side of the chip. So it does give us Mac users another option for our own genealogy software right there on our computer. I've played around with it a little bit. I've not had a chance to really take a deep dive into the software, but what I've seen so far, I'm liking it. I really am liking it. Again, that's a very early review, but I've been in the market actually for quite a while for a new software program. I've been kind of in between for longer than I really wanted to be. So I'm going to put Roots Magic 9 through its paces and see if that's going to be the solution for me. Now, I know people are going to be asking, well, Amy, you did just say that you're kind of between programs, but what program should I use? What is the best program? And honestly, the best program to use is the one that you find easiest to use. Because if there's something about a program, like you don't really like how it does source citations, or you don't like the reports, or whatever it is, if it's giving you hassles, you're not going to keep up with it, especially with the source citations. If working with source citations in whatever program you're using, if you're finding it like you would rather, go have a root canal, then you're probably not going to be adding your source citations. And those are so helpful. So I always suggest, whenever possible, to get a trial version or, free version, whatever, and put whatever software through its paces and see if it's something that you like. Right now, it is looking promising for me with Roots Magic 9, but I need to work with it some more to see if that's going to be the solution for me right now. All right. Do we have? No, that was it. That's all I had for the. That's all I had for the big announcements, and there were so many exhibitors and so many things going on, but those were the biggest things that I saw in the exhibit hall. Yeah, there was a lot going on. I do want to give some of my thoughts about RootsTech now that it was back in person. Again, it's the first time that it's been in person since 2020. It was kind of surreal. It was honestly the first time that I had been on a plane since March of 2020. So that was a different experience for me. RootsTech, for those of you who weren't there in person, as you might expect, it was smaller than what we've had in previous years. But it was by no means small. It was still a large event. There were still a few thousand people there in the Salt Palace in Salt Lake City. But it never, even though there were a lot of people, it never felt overly crowded. Even coming out of the opening sessions, the keynote sessions every day, again, yeah, it was crowded, but it didn't feel like that crush of humanity that I have felt in previous years. I actually liked the size that RootsTech was this year. I thought it was a good size. I thought that it was just comfortable. I felt it being comfortable and it wasn't overwhelming. The exhibit hall was smaller, but again, it was by no means skimpy. There were a lot of vendors. It was still going to take you some time to go through the entire exhibit hall, but having fewer vendors gave RootsTech the opportunity to do more and different things with the space. In fact, when you first walked into the exhibit hall, they had it set up kind of like a small park area. They had, it was, I mean, they were fake, but there were like lights, light poles, and it looked like grass, and it was like a little stone path going through, and hedges and shrubbery and all this. And it was a really nice place to sit down for a couple minutes. And it also made a great meeting spot when you did make connections with somebody in Relatives at RootsTech. Because if you were actually there together, it's like, hey, I'm here, you're here. Why don't we meet there at, and I think they called it the Cousins Corner. It was there in that park area. And it just made a great meeting spot. So that was really, it was, like I said, a nice use of the space. And I was glad to see things like that just kind of made it less very conference-like and really made it more enjoyable. They had a little area where they had a giant chessboard. They had this giant Jenga game. They had like Connect Four, where you drop the little discs in and try to connect 4 colored discs in a row. So it was just fun. And I was glad to see that they were doing things like that to just make things fun. So it's going to be interesting to see what RootsTech does next year. I understand that they are already planning on having it both in person and virtual again next year. They have set the dates, and that's going to be February 29th, because next year is a leap year. It's going to be February 29th to March 2nd. 2024, again, back in Salt Lake at the Salt Palace. So mark your calendars now. That should be fun. So let me take a look at the comments, see if we have any other questions that came in. Carol says, maybe I need to take a selfie of me attending virtually. Yeah, the more selfies, the better. We need more genealogy selfies. Yeah, and talking about the StoryMaker Studio that's part of the Ancestry app, Christine says, I tried to get the app on my phone, but my phone isn't new enough to load it. You see, and that's the thing. I think Ancestry is kind of missing the mark a little bit, that they're cutting off some of their own customers by not having it available also via the web browser. Actually, pulling out your laptop and being able to use it from there. I really, really hope that they change that. Yeah, and I'm not sure about this either, Melissa. She says, not sure that's cool. And I think that Melissa's talking about when you make a story and you have it attached to somebody in your tree on Ancestry, that it is supposed to also notify or share that with people who have that same person in their tree. Melissa says, someone who says her husband was my dad's 7th cousin, she has my deceased sister in her tree, and she won't give me more info. I don't want her getting notified of anything. Yeah, something like that. Now, they're only going to get notified if you're attaching it to someone in your tree and they have that same person in their tree. So if you're sharing something about a different line, or if they don't have that person in your tree, it's not like they're going to get notified with every single thing that you do. Again, talking about the StoryMaker app, or the StoryMaker Studio, I wish that I knew how those notifications work. Just don't have a whole lot of clarity on that. Let's see. Comment about MyHeritage and the ability now to color code your tree over MyHeritage. Susan says, I love color coding, but I wish we could choose our own colors. I've been using different colors for a long time, and my brain will now have to translate what MyHeritage has for colors. Yeah. And I imagine also if you have your own color system, say in Ancestry DNA, you know how you can tag different matches and you have those groups. Yeah, do those color combinations, are they going to match what you have over on MyHeritage? Oh, let's see. Let's see what we have. And again, if you're just joining us, talking about a recap of RootsTech 2023. Question from Carol. We were just talking about Roots Magic, and she said, would you recommend Roots Magic 9 for a novice genealogist? It depends on the novice genealogist and how they work. I think that it could actually work out rather well for them. Again, picking your own software is so personal. I don't see why Roots Magic wouldn't work for a novice genealogist. Yeah, it does have some more advanced features, but you don't have to use them. So I would say if you're just starting out, give it a try, see if you like it. Jack says RootsTech 2023 may have been smaller in person, but is not wonderful to invite the world online. Yeah, I mean, there were thousands and thousands and thousands of people online, which I think it's great. You know, let's make this as accessible to everyone. Going back to what Family Search talked about on Thursday at Steve Rockwood's opening session, you know, all means all. And that includes people who are, you know, wanting or needing to stay home. You know, why shouldn't they be included? So yeah, I think that's pretty cool. Yeah, and Jack says, thanks for the comments about Mac. My world changed with the advent of the iPhone and the iPad, and I'm now in the process of getting a Mac to do some Mac genealogy stuff, photos, and coordinate with all of it. Yeah, I've been part of the Mac world for several years now, and they do have a pretty nice ecosystem. So it just made it super easy, you know, when I've got the photos and the videos on my phone, to be able to easily get it over to my laptop and just have everything work together. Yeah, I'm a Mac girl. What can I say? This is a great question from Beth. She says, what are the benefits of attending RootsTech in person? I would say, obviously, seeing people. For some people, that's not a benefit. I'm an introvert. I totally get that. But it is nice to be in an environment where you're interacting with other people who get it, who you don't have to explain why you're doing your research. You don't have to explain why genealogy is important to you, because it's important to everybody who's there. And obviously, being able to more easily ask questions when you're at a session, that's a benefit. It's something I think that they still need to figure out the virtual aspect of, to really bring in the virtual attendees into that experience. Going through the exhibit hall it's wow. I mean, there are so many products and vendors and societies and organizations and individuals who have every conceivable genealogy product out there. It is really neat to go through and see all of that, especially if you really enjoy tech, if you enjoy gadgets, if you enjoy playing with different apps and different bits of software and seeing what is out there. I know that RootsTech does have the virtual expo hall, and that's great. There were some really, really good vendors in the virtual hall that were not there in person. But being there in person, you do have it's just a different experience. I really can't. Plus, you're next door, well, almost next door, to the world's largest genealogy library. So you tack on a couple of days, or you decide, this afternoon, I'm not going to go to any sessions. I'm going to go to the library. That's kind of hard to turn down. It's right there. The library is right there. And what was cool this year, I don't remember them having this before, but maybe I'm just forgetting. They actually were running little golf cart shuttles between the Salt Palace and the library. So saves you some walking. It was cool. Yeah. John says, my first time attending in person, it forced me to dedicate the time to learn. Many in-person talks were not recorded, and you can visit the Family Search Library. Yeah, exactly. Exactly. Jack says, how about using Ancestry to sync with Family Tree Maker for your working big tree and use Roots Magic for the rest? I think if I'm going to use both an Ancestry tree and my own software, I'm only going to have one bit of software, because Roots Magic, you actually can sync. It's the other program that will let you sync. It's not as automatic as Family Tree Maker. There are a couple extra steps, but you actually can sync the two. The easier, the simpler that you can make any system, generally the better. Fewer points of failure. Vanessa says, for records in South America, I have found that only Family Search has more records. Do you know other websites that have historical records for that region? Aside from Family Search, and they are bumping up their coverage in South America, I honestly don't know. One thing I would take a look at is the Family Search Wiki, because the Family Search Wiki, it covers the world. So you could pull up the Wiki page, say, for Colombia or Brazil, and it can give you links to other resources. So I would start with the Family Search Wiki. I would also do a Google search. Just do a Google search for, and I would put it in the language of that country. Well, try it both ways, but do a search for that country or that province or district in that country, followed by genealogy or whatever the word is in the local language, and let Google do its magic and see what it will bring back. But again, I would start with the Family Search Wiki to see what they have. Yeah, I agree with this, Gladys. Gladys says, I love the relative information from Family Search. And what she's talking about is the relatives at RootsTech. So if you were registered for RootsTech, either in person or virtually, and you have, and you are in the Family Search tree, it would go in and you could see everybody that you were related to. I think the information, I think that relatives at RootsTech will still be up through March. So until the 31st of this month. I think that was the date. But yeah, I wish it was longer too. Yeah, and that's what John just said. RootsTech, the relative finder is live till the end of March. So reach out now, because what's cool is if you go ahead and send those people a message, the message will still be there. It'll still be part of the Family Search messaging system. So send your messages now before that goes away. Oh, thank you, Rosalind. I appreciate this. She says, I too watched and listened to both your sessions from home. They were fantastic. I always enjoy your presentations. Thank you for sharing your knowledge with all of us. Oh, that's so nice of you to say. Yeah, I really enjoyed presenting there. I also had a session that was in person only on Friday. I wish that that had been the one they had chosen to live stream, because it was about passing your family history to the next generation. And I don't know, maybe I'll do a video about that, because I had a couple of points that I don't want to say are controversial, but yeah. So maybe I'll make a video about that. And Melissa says, going to the library would be a dream come true. Not sure I would have a clue where to start. Now that is something that I'm going to have a video about in the not too terribly distant future. I got a lot of video made at the library, so I'm going to do a video all about, okay, so you're planning a trip to Salt Lake. Here's how to plan, and here's what to expect. Yeah, as Jenna says, download, download, download. Exactly. Yes. And send those messages now. All right. Well, everyone, that's really, I don't want to say that's all I have, because that was a lot. There was a lot going on at RootsTech this year, like it always is. If you are watching, because this replay or this live stream will be available as a replay as soon as I'm done, and YouTube will do its whole processing thing. But while you're here, those of you watching this live, hey, feel free to go ahead and hit that like button if you've enjoyed this. And I do have videos here on my channel. I'm going to be doing them a lot more regularly now, whether they're live streams or whether they are pre-recorded content. So if this is a kind of content that you like, go ahead and hit that subscribe button. So, and you know, there's also that little notification bell if you want, and that will usually notify you when I have a new video or I have a live stream like we have here tonight. All right, everyone, thank you so much for joining me. Again, whether you are watching this live or watching the replay, I really do appreciate you. And until next time, I hope you go out and make some great discoveries in your family tree. All right, everyone, take care. Bye-bye.